I got this for Christmas. How cool is that? Hey everybody, and welcome back. I hope you had a lovely Christmas. It's been pretty hectic. I have just landed back in Preston. I was away for Christmas, like many people are over the Christmas period, and I have half the time. My silly self thought I had more time to do this video in, and I only have half the time. So I do apologise. This might not be quite as polished as the last one. You might not get quite as many video shots and things like that. But I still want to get this out because I did promise beforehand to get this video out. So I wanted to make sure that I got this video out before the new year. So please forgive me if it's a bit rough around the edges. Having said that, I really hope you enjoyed yourselves, and I really hope that you enjoy this video. Yeah, this is top 5 things about miniatures. Or top 5 things that I like about miniatures. I have been accused on one occasion, or maybe a couple of occasions, of liking miniatures games. So this should be fairly easy. Or so you'd think. Let's crack on with the video, and hopefully you'll see what I mean. So number 5 on my top 5 things I like about miniatures are the miniatures themselves. They are amazing. They have a tactility that no other game medium can provide. Playing video games is great, but the ability to pick up something in real life and touch it and hold it and look at it from all the different angles, that is just something that you cannot beat in many regards. It's something that video games or card games or whatever have tried to emulate over the years. There is something intrinsically just fun and enjoyable about moving things like miniatures round boards, round play areas, and they just look amazing. That's the other thing. The quality of miniatures has just gone through the roof. I got into miniatures because I started, like many a young boy, by collecting airfix kits and building cars and planes and things like that. And I remember thinking to myself, how fun would this be if I could do something with them? And it was from those small roots that I found wargaming in general. And that is how I got into them. And miniatures are phenomenal. They are works of art, each and every single one. Some are better quality than others, but they are all a joy to just pick up, move around, play with, examine it. They're just great fun. Miniatures are far and away one of my favourite things. And even in board games these days, they're now emulated by the fact that they put in miniatures into board games. So that kind of tells you everything you really need to know in that regard about them. But obviously I can't go too far into this because this is going to spill over into the other points, which is what I alluded to at the beginning. But you'll get a lot of this, and I do apologise. So point 4 on my 5 things I like about miniatures is painting and converting. So this is a huge, I am doing such sweeping strokes with the top 5s, but the whole thing about you buy a model and it comes and it's naked, and I probably could show you loads of them because I have so many of them not painted because I am a terrible person for that, but they come unpainted, so you need to build them and paint them to make them look pretty. But the joy with that is that you can do them however you want to. If you want to have British Army guys in pink outfits, you can do that. If you want to have orcs that have flesh colour skin, you can do that. If you want to convert it so that a big strapping guy has a really small head, you can do that too. You can do whatever you want, and that is one of my favourite things about miniatures games, is that scope. Your imagination is pretty much the only thing that limits you. Yes, obviously some things require skill and time to get good at, like using green stuff. I'm okay with it. I'm not as good as many people out there. I can normally fill gaps and do small conversions, but the fact remains is that I can do this. In a lot of other mediums, like card games, you can convert cards, but then sometimes you won't be able to use them in tournaments and things like that. And generally speaking, so long as what you have converted is a fair depiction of what you're trying to represent, most companies and tournaments don't really care about that kind of thing, which is great. In fact, some things actively encourage it. Golden Demon is a whole award ceremony built around praising people for their ability to paint and convert, and you get some astonishingly beautiful things coming out of that. Painting and converting, whether you are a young boy that's just got into it or an older girl that's just got, it doesn't matter whether you're a young boy, girl, whatever. If you've just got into it, you will have your first tentative steps and they might be a bit messy. But over time, you will get better at it. It just happens naturally. The more you do it, the neater you get, the quicker you get, the better you get. And there are so many videos and things like that out there. which I've just kind of alluded to one of my other points with. Again, this is kind of what I was worried about with this video, is that there is a lot of bleed over into the other points. But again, it's that fact that it's a joy, and the sense of achievement that you get from taking a model from its bare plastic or metal and then bringing it up to a painted and converted, if you wanted to, miniature. It's just a joy and a real sense of accomplishment when you do it. It doesn't matter if it's the greatest in the world, so long as you're happy with it, and that is the important thing. And I have seen people, young and old, paint their first miniature, and that the joy that they have on their face because of that accomplishment is just second to none. And that is why painting and converting is my number 4. So my number 3 on my top 5 things that I like about miniatures gaming actually has an awful lot of similarities with a similar point I made on my card gaming list. So one of the really fun things about miniatures gaming is, and it's far too nerdy for words to be fair, but it's making lists, which is very similar to making lists for card games and obviously getting your deck list right. But it's the same thing. You sit down and you are like, right, okay, I've just got this new model and I really want to give it a go. So it costs X amount of points and I want to put it into this list. So then you start adding all the other key components that you need, like, well, maybe I need a command structure and maybe I need some heavy weapons to go with it or some specialist people to go with it. And then, oh, well, maybe I can make it into a better version of it. So add a few points here and a few points there. And then, oh, I'm over budget now. So it becomes this beautiful kind of balancing act. You're trying to get to a certain point allowance so that obviously you and your opponent can have a fairly fair game. But at the same point, it's just endlessly nerdy. And the amount of times that I've sat down and I've been like, right, okay, I'm going to use X and Y in a list. And I've ended up making not only that list, but 3 others, because I've thought, well, I really want to get this into my list, but I want to get this in with it, because I think they'll work really well together. Only to find that I can't afford to get them both into the list. So I rejig the list, maybe we remove them both, but then I really liked that idea, so then I'll be like, right, okay, well, that's that list done, out the way. Let's get a new list and put these 2 things on it, and then I'll start building around that. And you just end up spending hours and hours flicking through rulebooks and army lists and trying to figure out all these different, and then before you know it, instead of doing 1 list, you've done 4. And it's just hilariously good fun. By the same token, this also ties hand in hand with the fact of new miniatures. Whenever new miniatures come out, that's just another way to build a list. I mean, the excitement of a new miniature coming out is just, well, I mean, the amount of people I know that get really giddy over it. I mean, I myself will look at the new list coming out and be like, oh, I've never used one of those in my army before. I wonder what that would be like. Oh, I must get one. So you get out, you rush out and get it, and then obviously you've then got to build a list around that as well. And it's far too fun. The amount of hours that you'll lose to list building, you'll always sit there and be like, no, I will not be like that. That's just boring, nerdy things that people, weirdos with Excel spreadsheets, like to do. And it's like, no, you will do it too. If you get into miniatures gaming, you will spend far too much time building lists because it is far too much fun. You'll do it on your coffee breaks. You can get apps for your phone these days, so you haven't even got to carry around scraps of paper. Or maybe you are that type of person. Maybe you've got a little book and you're just constantly beavering away, writing in your book. It doesn't matter. You will learn this stuff inside and out. You'll know your army, and you will sit there all the time, and you'll get into lovely nerdy conversations about, oh, well, you could take that one, but this one's 4 points cheaper, so that means that you can get that one in there. It's far too much fun. I don't care who you are. It is just fun. It's like the reverse of writing a shopping list. It's just, for some reason, writing a shopping list, I'm going to go to Aldi or Tesco or wherever and it's some milk and cheese. That's boring. Writing a list for a miniatures game, that's far too much fun. So I don't care who you are. That is my number 3, and you can just lock it all up. So my second favourite point that I like about miniatures games is the background. Oh my god, the background. So in a lot of board games and card games, the background fluff, as it's often referred to as, is fairly superficial. It's just a means to an end to get you playing the game. In fact, there are some games out there that are not the worst for it, I have to say, but there are some games out there that you could lift the entire theme wholesale, replace it with something else entirely, and it would make not one iota of difference. The game would still be fun as it is. But in miniatures games, the fluff tends to be quite integral. It often defines the design choices that they bring into the game. And the amount of lore and backstory that goes into it is astronomical, and it is amazing. And before you sit there and think, well, okay, that's good for X and Y, but maybe what about a war game? Well, then you've got history books. Like Bolt Action is a good example of this. Bolt Action rulebook, you can read through it and it will tell you where the game is in that moment in time, where the forces were, what's going. So you actually learn. That actually makes it even more interesting when you think about it, because at that point, a miniatures game is teaching you about actual history and real life politics and real life troop movements. So in that regard, it's actually even more interesting. But gone slightly off topic there. I just wanted to prove a point, obviously, about it doesn't matter whether it's based on a real world scenario, whether it's Vikings or World War characters. You will either learn from it because it will be real life, or there will be volumes of information. Absolutely. I mean, if any of you have seen my Infinity Third Offensive unboxing that I did a little while ago, you will see that book is 3/4, if not more, full of background and story, because this stuff is important. This is what turns this from tiny pieces of, I was going to say lead, but it's not lead anymore, but tiny pieces of pewter or plastic or whatever into the world. This is what gets you hooked and engaged and really keeps you. And there is loads, and some of it is phenomenally well written. It rivals novellas out there, novels and things like that are out there. It is astronomical. Off the top of my head, I mean, you've got entire franchises built. So, like, Games Workshop obviously has the 40,000 universe, which is, in and of itself, has a whole subset of novels and comic books and films, apparently. I think someone told me that a Netflix series is coming out about it. That's off the back of a miniatures game. On top of that, you've got smaller ones as well. So you've got, like, Infinity is still a very large player in the industry, but they've got book upon book upon book, rule books. So when you buy the rule book, it comes with a rule book and a source book. Because if you're going to play the game, then here's all this information. If you wanted, you don't have to. You can completely ignore all of this if you want to. But you can, if you want to, you can dive in, and there is so much. Lord of the Rings, Fallout, Walking Dead. I mean, honestly, there are miniatures games everywhere, and so many of them. The attention to detail they'll go into in their background and their story is second to none, and it's amazing. Because ultimately, these things are often written by nerds, and what are nerds good for if not obsessing over trivial bits of information? So, yes, one of my favourite things has to be the background for these things, because the detail and the care that goes into developing them and building them is astronomical. I mean, what was the one I saw? I saw one a little while ago. I say a little while. It's been out for ages, and you lot will know it all well and good by now, probably. Drop Fleet Commander, I believe it's called. That absolutely melted my brains. The background for that's amazing. I'm like, this is a game where essentially you're just moving some little guys around a board, and you're like trying to capture objectives and things like that. And yet there was like the whole book written to explaining why was this going on, where did these characters come from, where did these races come from. This attention to detail is second to none, as I said a minute ago, and I absolutely adore miniatures games for it, because it is wholly worthwhile, and it absolutely endears you to their universes. So I absolutely adore it. It's my second favourite point, and yeah, that's pretty much it, really. Right, folks, so this is point number 1 on my top 5 things that I like about miniatures. And if you think I've been rambly before, I apologise, because you better strap in. I'm going to ramble the hell out of it now. Because quite frankly, I couldn't think of a way to condense this down more. I probably could have expanded it into top 20,000 points. But so many of them are interwoven that I would find it difficult to try and break them down. I feel, as you've already seen in my other points, I've drifted across into other areas. But I'm just going to ramble, I think. I think that's probably the best way to do it. I'm just going to ramble, and I'm going to gush about all the things that I absolutely adore about miniatures games. So, first and foremost is the community. Now, I'm aware that obviously that in my last video, my top 5 things I like about card games, I had that as my number 1. And I didn't want to do the same thing for this one, but it's too good not to include, so therefore you're going to get me that, and I'm going to give you a bunch of other points as well. So, yes, community. The community for miniature games is astronomically good. Again, this is in part because of the people like the authors I mentioned before, who are writing novels and adding to the world, but also the people themselves, people like you and me, who will help other people learn how to paint, or to fill them in on bits of lore that they didn't know about. If you want to go on YouTube now like you're already on there because you're watching me, but if you want to go on YouTube now, there are people on there telling you the entire lore to characters, places, things, events about various different games. You can go up there now, you can find a guy talking about Warhammer, and he spends hours doing it. If you want to know about other games as well, there are other like-minded people out there doing the same thing. If you want to know how to paint better, then either someone sitting next to you at your local gaming club can help you, or you can go on YouTube. And again, there are thousands of hours of different individuals teaching you, from notable characters like Sorestro, who is amazing and I love him to bits because he teaches me how to paint with my fumbling ape hands, how to make paint stick to a model in a way that looks pleasing to the eye, to people who are teaching you the finer points of airbrushing, or the finer points of how to do finer points like eyes and things like that. There are loads. The community for miniatures games is astronomically large. It is everywhere, and whether you are dealing with people directly, like in your local club, and having friendly games with them and having banter conversations about who would win with this and who would win with that, or whether it's on the internet and places like YouTube and forums and things like that, there are loads. The community is amazing and I absolutely adore it. But I didn't want to just have that as my number one, because obviously I did that for my last number one. So what else can I gush about? Let me think. The rules. The rules are amazing. It does not matter whether you're playing a game that has simple rule set or a complex rule set. They are designed to do different things. There are some games out there, I've mentioned Bolt Action already, so I'll use that as a good example. Bolt Action is beautifully simple, and it really conveys that sweeping theme of just whole-scale armies moving around. You're not getting into the nitty-gritty, you're not figuring out whether a blade of grass has distracted a trooper. No, just big buckets of dice, roll them all, these things happen, move on with it, do the next thing. And because of that, I've seen some absolutely hilarious things come out of it, because you're not focused on the rules, you're just focused on playing the game. And because of that, I've seen hilarious things ensue. I don't want to mention too many things, but people dwell on silly things like one particular person I know of has a clown Gruzovic. He did tell me what that stuff. I think it was a clown truck in Russian, but because his guys kept getting into this truck and tootling down the road, it ended up blowing up like some kind of bad 1930s film. And because they're not dwelling on the rules, they're finding silly things out like that. Conversely, you've also got things like Infinity, which is quite a complex game, but that allows you to do some phenomenal things, like some proper 80s film action moments with characters jumping over things and sliding down like avenues, shooting bullets at people and ducking and diving. And newer games, Carnival, I spoke about that. You've got characters jumping from rooftop to rooftop. The rules are the kind of bedrock of the game, and it really helps to set the tone for what it's going to be like. And the fact that there are such diverse rule sets and such simple rule sets that allow you to just either get on with these grand vistas or smaller, more involved events that are going on. There is a game out there for damn near anybody and everybody. In fact, some rule sets are written with no miniatures in mind. So Open Combat, it's not that I've met the guy that has developed that game, and he's a lovely guy, and he made a rule set that allows you to use any miniatures that you want in his game world. So you can make your own little campaigns, and his has a massive emphasis on storytelling, which I adore. You've got older games like Inquisitor, where they're almost D&D with their level of complexity and actually having somebody there to be a dungeon master almost. There are rule sets that cater for everybody and anything. So if you think you're not into miniatures games, it's just a case of finding which one appeals to you the most. What else can I gush about? The scope. We've mentioned that it's kind of crossed over, so we may as well talk about that too. The scope is phenomenal. Again, you can have a small scale engagement between like a game that where the whole rule set is designed for you to have a couple of squads of guys, or even a couple of girls or guys or whatever, and like robot dogs and all sorts. You can have a few of them, and the rule set will be designed to tell a very involved story between those characters. Or you can have a rule set that, not a rule set. I've rambled off topic. I do apologise. I knew this would happen, but I'm going to leave this in anyway. To hell with you. You can all enjoy it. My madness descending into chaos. Yeah, but the scope of these games varies. It goes from a few characters to whole armies that will take a whole kind of one side of a 6-foot board to convey the sheer magnitude of what the game is trying to depict. You've got underwater battles, space battles, old-fashioned like bows and arrows. You've got fantastic miniature shooter games. I cannot think. I've played games where you drive cars around a track and shoot at each other, but like a kind of Mad Max inspired mayhem. There is games that just cover scope. I just can't even trying to think about all the different ones to tell you guys. There are so many different miniatures games from so many different universes, conveying so many different ideals. You've got robot games, mech games, plane games, things like X-Wing and stuff like that. Space battle games like Armada and big ship-to-ship scale games. Drop Fleet was another one. Drop Zone Commander, which obviously the scale and scope of these are biblical. There is so much. Oh my god, I can gush for hours and hours. Miniatures games are unimaginable amounts of fun. You just need to find your niche, and I think that's what all of everything that we do here at Harlequins. I think that's the whole point. I think the whole thing is just helping you find your niche in this mad cat world. Do you want to play My Little Pony RPG? Go for it. Do you know what I mean? Using little miniatures to run around the board. That's perfect. Go for it. Do you want to play Brave Adventurers in a cave? Yeah, there's miniatures for that too. Do you want to play a futuristic jet bike game? Yep, I'm sure I can find you a miniature set for that too. Miniatures are amazing at conveying the sheer scope of imagination. If you can imagine it, there's probably a game set out there for it. Anyway, I have gushed and rambled and gone all over the place, and I do apologise because I am very aware that this is going to be very rambly, and especially during that last point, probably a bit all over the place. I hope it at least conveys my enthusiasm for this industry and this hobby. Miniatures games are such amazing fun, and they give you such a warm feeling to be able to paint a model and convert a model and bring it to the table and have everyone admire what you've done and praise you, because again the community is so good. It's just a phenomenal industry. Anyway, I'm going to wrap this up because I have waffled on for far too long. This video is going to be horrifically long. I'm not looking forward to editing it, so I do apologise. But anyway, the point being is I hope you all had a lovely Christmas. I hope that this video wasn't too... Well, it's going to be waffly, I do apologise. But I hope that you all enjoy it at the very least. If you did, please give us a like. Say in the comments below. Actually, tell me. That's something. We're talking about community. You tell me, what's your favourite thing about miniatures games? What are your favourite things or your favourite memories? Because I love reading those too. Again, I can tell you loads about people that I've seen with me and eyes or have been told to me. Tell me yours. What's your favourite thing? Failing that, if you don't want to do any of that, that's perfectly fine. If you do want to keep up to date with us though, ring the little bell so you stay notified and hit the subscribe button, and that will help to keep you up to date with all my waffly videos. In the meantime though, I really hope that you had a lovely Christmas. I hope that you don't get too drunk in the new year, and I will see you all after that for the news videos. But until then, have a nice day folks, take care of each other, and I will see you all in the new year. Bye bye for now.